Shalom, this is Levi Shore. Welcome back to Sweet and Good Torah. Today we're going to do part 8 of the Rambam's 13 principles. And today's principle is that we receive the whole Torah from Hashem at Mount Sinai, at Har Sinai. Alright, so let's jump right in. So the Ani Ma'amin. So Ani Ma'amin b'Emunah Shlema. That I know with perfect knowledge, Shekol Torah hametsuya ata uvyadenu. That the whole Torah that is found now in our hands, He Hanasuna the Moshe Rabbeinu, that it was given to Moshe Rabbeinu, to Moses our teacher. Alav Hashalom, upon him should be peace. So we look into the Yigdal, the song the Yigdal, for additional clues. And the Yigdal says, Torah's emes nasan la'amo el, that the Torah truth was given given from God to His people. Al Yad Nevio, through his prophet, Naaman Beso, who was trusted in his house. That Moshe was the most trusted Navi, the most trusted prophet in Hashem's house. So we're going to get some help today from Rabbi Aryeh Kaplan in his book on the Ani Ma'amin. And let's jump right in. So every mitzvah, all the 613 mitzvahs, the mitzvah is given to Moshe on Mount Sinai, they were given with an explanation. So Hashem tells Moshe, so we learn the pasuk in the Sefer Shmos, the book of Exodus, chapter 24, pasuk 12. So he says, come to me to the mountain. So, and I will give you the luchos. So I'll read the Lashon HaKodesh. It says, Ve'etna lecha es luchos ha'evan, that I will give to you the tablets of stone. And these stone tablets were actually made of sapphire. They were rectangles of sapphire. They weren't curved at the top either. I don't know where all that comes from. So v'haTorah v'hamitzvah asher kasavti lahorosam, and the Torah and the mitzvah that I wrote to teach you. So then Rabbi Kaplan, he teaches us that Torah, if the pasuk says Torah, that refers to the Torah Sh'Bctav, the written Torah. And when it says mitzvah, or instruction, or commandment, that's the interpretation. So we are commanded to keep the Torah according to its interpretation. So the interpretation is what we call the Torah Sh'Baal Peh, the Oral Torah. So Moshe wrote the entire Torah with his own hand shortly before he passed away, before he was nifter. He gave a copy to each one of the Shvatim of each of the tribes. And another Torah was placed in the Aron HaKodesh, the Ark of the Covenant, as a testimony for all generations. So Moshe told the Leviim, take this scroll of the Torah and place it by the side of the Ark of the Covenant. And that's in Devarim, the book of Devarim, Deuteronomy 31:26. So the interpretation, however, was not written down, but was orally taught to the elders, to the Zakanim, to Yeshua, and the rest of the Jewish people. So Moshe said in Devarim 13:1, in Deuteronomy, all this word that I instruct you, you will keep and obey. So it is for this reason that it's called the Torah Sh'Baal Peh, the Oral Torah. So although the Oral Torah was not written down, it was taught by Moshe to his council, which was made up of the 70 elders who formed the Sanhedrin. Elazar, Pinchas, and Yeshua, they all received the tradition, the Masorah, from Moshe. So Yeshua, however, was Moshe's main student, and he was given responsibility for the Torah Sh'Baal Peh and received special instruction in it. So Yeshua likewise taught this tradition orally as long as he lived, and there were many Zakanim who received the tradition from Yeshua. So Rebbe Yehuda, the son of Rebbe Shimon, was known as Rabbeinu HaKodesh, our holy rabbi. And it was Rabbeinu HaKodesh who wrote the Mishnah. So from the time of Moshe into Rabbeinu HaKodesh, there was no book from which the Torah Sh'Baal Peh, the Oral Torah, could be taught publicly. So in each generation, however, there was a Navi, there was a prophet, or the head of the Sanhedrin, who would write down his own notes in order that he might remember what he learned from his teachers. He would then use these notes in his oral teachings, and everyone listening would also take notes according to his ability. So similar notes were taken on the laws that were not transmitted from generation to generation, but were derived through the 13 principles of Rebbe Yishmael, of how where they were used to expound the Torah. So these are the 13 principles we use to expound the pasuk, the pasukim, and this is what's taught in the Gemara. And the Gemara expounds on the Mishnah. We'll get to that soon. So this continued until the time of Rabbeinu HaKodesh, Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi, Rabbi Yehuda the Prince, and then he gathered all the traditions, the laws, the explanations, and the commentaries on the entire Torah, which have been handed down from Moshe and expounded by the Sanhedrin in each generation. So this was then all compiled into a book known as the Mishnah. So the Mishnah was then publicly taught to the Chachamim, the Torah sages, and revealed to all the Jewish people. Everyone wrote it down, and it was spread to every community. And the Torah Sh'Baal Peh was thus preserved and not forgotten. And the reason why Rabbeinu HaKodesh broke the tradition of leaving the Torah Sh'Baal Peh unwritten was because he saw that the number of students were declining, and new troubles were continually arising, and the Roman Empire was spreading throughout the world and constantly becoming stronger. So the Roman Empire was founded by the sons of Esau. So Esau was the brother of Yaakov, Esau, and Jacob. And so the Romans, because they were descended from Esau, had a great hatred of the Jewish people, and really hated the Torah because they saw that they had their birthright. They thought they had their birthright from Yitzhak, and they hated the fact that Yaakov still had the Torah. So, lost where we're at. So the Jews were also becoming separated, and they were traveling to the four corners of the earth, and he therefore wrote a single volume that everyone could have. It was something that could be learned rapidly and not forgotten. So Rabbeinu HaKodesh, he spent all his life together with his council, publicly teaching the Mishnah. So among the Chachamim, among the sages who were part of Rabbeinu HaKodesh's council were Rebbe Chia, Rav, Bar Kapara, Rebbe Yochanan, and Rebbe Hoshea. So besides these, there were tens of thousands of other Chachamim who received the tradition from Rabbeinu HaKodesh. Rav then wrote the Sifra and the Sifri, and this is commentaries on the books of Vayikra, Bamidbar, and Devarim, which is called Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. And this was to explain and expound upon the main points of the Mishnah. So Rebbe Chia wrote the Tosefta to elucidate other concepts in the Mishnah. So Rebbe Hoshea and Bar Kapara likewise wrote different Baraisas, the Braisot, and these were to explain the words of the Mishnah. So finally, Rebbe Yochanan wrote the Talmud Yerushalmi, the Jerusalem Talmud, and this was written in the Eretz Yisrael, in the land of Israel. And this was written some 300 years after the destruction of the Holy Temple, so the temple was destroyed in the year 70. So Ravina and Rav Ashi were the last of the Hachamim of the Talmud, and it was Rav Ashi who wrote the Talmud Bavli, the Babylonian Talmud, in Babylon, which is now modern-day Iraq. And that was approximately 100 years after Rebbe Yochanan had written the Talmud Yerushalmi. So both Talmuds, or what they're called in Aramaic is Gemara, were commentaries on the Mishnah, explaining its depth and expounding all the new concepts that have been resolved in the Beis Dins, in the courts, and the Sanhedrins, since the time of Rabbeinu HaKodesh. So the two Talmuds, the Tosefta, the Sifra, and the Sifri, all explain what is permitted, what is forbidden, what is clean and what is unclean, what's tahor or tameh, what if someone's chayav or pater, if they're liable or innocent, fit and unfit, kosher or pasul. And it was all as if it had been handed down from generation to generation, ultimately from Moshe himself. So Ravina and Rav Ashi were therefore the last great Jewish Hachamim, sages, to transcribe the Torah Sh'Baal Peh, and every Jew therefore follows the Talmud Bavli, the Babylonian Talmud. And this is because every single Jew had agreed to accept the teachings of the Talmud, for it included the teachings of all HaChachamim, or at least the majority of them. They in turn received the tradition regarding the foundation of the Torah from generation to generation, and ultimately from Moshe himself. So real quick, so Moshe was very unique in his life, and he was the one that received all the Torah. He was taught all the Torah by Hashem directly, peh lepeh, peh lepeh, mouth to mouth, and he spoke panim al panim, he spoke face to face with Hashem. We talked about that a little in part 7. It's very confusing, so we're not going to go into it so much now. But basically, Moshe went up to Har Sinai. We got there, I think, on Rosh Chodesh Sivan, on the first of the month of Sivan. And Moshe went up a couple times, spoke to Hashem. Then we received the Torah. Everyone heard the Torah on the 6th of Sivan, which is the holiday of Shavuos. And then after the holiday of Shavuos, Moshe went up the next day on the 7th of Sivan, and he stayed in Shemayim for 40 days. and then he came back down. I don't know if I did my calculations right, but he came back down, I think, on the 17th of Tammuz. And then when he came down on the 17th of Tammuz, it should have been a day. Oh, I'm sorry, it was the 17th of Tevis. And this began a period what we call the 3 weeks. And instead of coming down to this great celebration, that we see these two sapphire luchos, these two tablets from Hashem, and Hashem wrote on them. It should have been this great day of celebration of receiving the Torah. It became a day of beginning of 3 weeks of mourning, because on that day the golden calf was built. So then Moshe broke those tablets, and then went up again on the 18th of Tevis, and spent, or Tammuz, I'm sorry. So it was the 7th of Sivan to the 17th of Tammuz. Then it was the 18th of Tammuz until the 18th of Av. And I don't know if he was further learning from Hashem in those 40 days, but he was also davening and praying that the Jewish people would have forgiveness. So then he went back down. Hashem told him to carve his own luchos, and then he went back up on the 19th of Av, I think it was, and came back down on the 10th of Tishrei, Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement, the Day of Forgiveness. And that's when we finally received the second luchos and the Torah. So everything, so we received the Torah in the year 2448 of the Hebrew calendar. It's now 5777. So let's see, I think I did this calculation. I think it's 3,329 years since we received the Torah. So over thousands of years, things, right, as we just said, have been written down. So basically, all the midrashim, all the stories, the Mishnah, the Gemara, all the Halakha, all the halakhic sefers, all the higher level mysticism of like the Zohar and the Kabbalah, and every aspect, Moshe received all these things. They're all just one Torah that Moshe received, and slowly over the years we were worried about forgetting some of these things, and people used to know these all. We had great Chachamim that knew all the information in their head. They were a Google. They were living Googles. They were living Sefer Torahs. You could just ask the Talmud Chacham, and he could tell you anything about probably any wisdom in the world. So the Torah we have today, we have it all. It's available at our fingertips. We can Google it. We can open a sefer. We can learn it. So B'ezrat Hashem, we should all learn the whole Torah, see the coming of Mashiach, and be taught even more and more in-depth and secret aspects of the Torah. And have a great day, and thank you for watching Sweet Good Torah.